Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice podcast, your inside connection to outdoor legislation. From the Beltway to policy happening your way, we're covering it all. I'm your host, Fred Bird. Join us as we explore public land access, wildlife and fisheries management, Second Amendment rights, the triumphs that shape our nation, the sports we all love, and the stories that fuel our passion for the great outdoors. This is the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to this feature episode of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. This is your Q3 federal policy update. We welcome in Taylor Schmitz, Chris Horton, John Colclazier, get into their specific portfolios. Let's get right to it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is your Q3 federal policy update. As I said in the top, we're going to welcome in Taylor Schmitz, Chris Horton, and John Colclazier. But before we introduce our first guest, I want to acknowledge we in the past, when the news broke, we told you about Taylor and his big promotion. But this is the first time we've had Taylor on the show since being ascended to the CSF vice president role. So, Mr. Vice President of CSF, welcome into the show. Taylor, congratulations.
Thank you, Fred. It's good to be with you.
Recognizing that, Congress is out, things are kind of slow, still wanted to give you and the other federal policy team opportunity to come on here, update the audience on anything that is still maybe moving or what we can look forward to heading towards the end of 25.
Yeah, Fred, it's great to be with you. Always good to be on the podcast. I think first and foremost, one of the things that kept us really busy this summer was the public lands fight here on Capitol Hill, and specifically the effort to dispose of. There are a couple different proposals put out there, but the most concerning of these proposals sought to mandate the disposal and sale of up to 3 million acres of federal public lands. For us at CSF, we are not opposed to selling off public lands. We are not opposed to disposing of public lands. But there is a process to go about doing so. And that process was really being bypassed through these proposals that were put forward in Congress. And specifically, what the issue here was that Congress was looking at disposing of certain federal public lands through the budget reconciliation process. And the challenge with that is, one, it is what some would call an expedited process, but more importantly, it requires only a simple majority in the Senate, so 51 votes as opposed to the normal threshold of 60 votes. And the reason that's concerning is because when you dispose of lands, it's more likely than not, arguably extremely unlikely, that these lands will end up back in public ownership again. So because of that, these things, any land disposal, any sales, exchanges, etc., require a higher degree of scrutiny than what budget reconciliation process requires or mandates. For us, we strongly oppose any land sales or disposals, exchanges, etc., through reconciliation. Again, this is not in anti-sale or disposable in principle for us at CSF. But ultimately, we were successful in seeing that language removed from the reconciliation package. That is a really, really big win for our community. One of the things, though, that we've said throughout the entire process, and we continue to say to this day, is that we're more than happy to roll up our sleeves and try to address some of these issues facing local communities in the West. Some of these issues include, restrictions where there's there's no affordable housing, whether that's for local communities, local residents, whether that's for seasonal workers at ski resorts or national parks, what have you. There's also, restrictions and limitations where local communities can't build fire departments or they don't have enough tax revenue to build a new school, et cetera. So there are real challenges out there that we need to work with local communities in the West on. However, it's also very important for us to sit back and truly identify what the actual problem is. For example, there's a number of towns in the West that have local zoning requirements where if you're going to build a house, it has to be on a minimum of 1 acre. Well, more likely than not, that's not going to be affordable housing because buying an acre of land is pretty darn expensive, especially in some of these Western communities. So, I say all that to say, we are committed to rolling up our sleeves and trying to figure this issue out, but it's going to require a very, very thoughtful process and a lot of stakeholder engagement across the board at the local level, at the state level, at the county level, at the federal level, but also stakeholder engagement from the sportsmen's community, from the broader outdoor recreation community, etc. And if we're serious about this, we really have to all sit down and roll up our sleeves and commit to one another that we are going to do what we can to try to figure this out. But I think at the end of the day, selling off federal public lands really is just a short term fix, and we'll be at this same spot again in a couple years. So with that, it's important to get this process right, and for us, that process was certainly not reconciliation.
Yeah, I mean, the blowback from the community, certain there were certain degrees of, looking at the bell curve, different points on it. I think what you did, your leadership and working with the CSC really, you know, got it to the middle in a very reasonable position, not telling our members of the CSC like we're totally against it, but also educating the entire community like there is this mechanism in place. It's already been there. So here's how we can facilitate some of that and even come out better on the other side if we follow the law that's already in place. So
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think, there's really one overarching principle here. And I should say the lands that were being identified for sale or disposal were Bureau of Land Management Forest Service lands. Um, so the overarching management practice or governing body for BLM lands is the Federal Land Policy Management Act. And included in FLPMA for short is language that actually requires the BLM to identify lands for disposal. So this is not exactly a new concept. What is a new concept is the force mandate to sell off or dispose of what I would call, frankly, an arbitrary cap or arbitrary floor at 2 to 3 million acres. So the BLM is required to do this. The other practice or law out there is the Federal Land Transaction Facilitation Act, which essentially says the sale of any federal lands from BLM and Forest Service, the proceeds of that money has to be reinvested into offsetting access somewhere else. So to your point, I think defining access is a really hard thing to do. What is good access to you and I as hunters is probably very different to what's good access as somebody that's a angler, a recreational shooter, somebody that enjoys ATVs and off-road vehicles, etc. So defining access and what is considered valuable land is often a really hard thing to do. I say all that to say that I think there are lands that, frankly, are low in recreational value. They're low in biological value for wildlife, for everything that you and I care about. So we do need to look at opportunities to potentially, dispose of some of those lands if they are truly low in recreational value, um, if they are truly low in recreational value and biological value. But again, that requires a very thoughtful process and making sure that we're looking at the smallest acreage possible to meet some of the needs of local communities while also ensuring we're not just selling off federal lands. Because again, what is good access to you as a hunter is probably different to what's valuable to me as a recreational shooter. So it's a difficult issue to get your arms around.
looking towards last quarter of this year and some change, members are going to be coming back, reconciliation behind us, and then looking forward in 2026, where election cycle is going to start for the midterms here locally. I know first congressional district is up for grabs because Senator Jean Shaheen, who is a member of the CSC, is retiring, so that opens a Senate seat. So people are going to start jockeying for position. What is the goal before 26 and all that starts again? And what do you think is reasonable that some of our priority positions can get passed before all that starts?
Yeah, that's a good question, Fred. I think a couple of things. I would start on the administration side. One of the last things that Congress did before they left town for the month of August was the Senate confirmed Director Brian Nesbitt to take the helm at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So we are really excited to have Director Nesbitt in place over at the Fish and Wildlife Service. He has a 30-year career within wildlife management in the state of Wyoming, most recently serving as the director of Wyoming Game and Fish, and also retired as a brigadier general from the Wyoming National Guard. And that really is just a testament to Brian's tremendous leadership. So I would say, the administration side is we think that they are in a pretty good spot right now in terms of having the right people in place, and looking forward to continue working with them, especially now that Director Nesvik is at the Fish and Wildlife Service. I would say on the congressional side, yeah, your point is spot on. That 2026, there's going to be a lot of knockdown, drag out election battles across the country. I think for us, we have a number of bills that have already passed the House. One of those is the Fix Our Forest Act. One of those is the Modernizing Access to Our Public Waters Act, or MAP Waters. One of those is the Shark Act. One of those is the Wetlands Conservation Improvement Act. So we have a handful of bills that have passed the House. Now we just need to get those out of the Senate at this point. So they passed the House under suspension of the rules, which is just really a way to move non-controversial bipartisan common sense legislation, which our priorities typically are. So we're hoping that the Senate can take those four up by the end of the year. I would also say there's a number of our priorities that have passed out of the committee level in the House, so we're working to get those added to the committee floor. But one thing that we are really excited about is um, we've talked about it on the podcast, and you've talked about it on the podcast, is our Rigs to Reefs initiative. And so working obviously with Chris Horton, really excited to hopefully get that legislation introduced and moving before the end of 2025. But I think beyond that, 2026, we need to get a farm bill done as well. We've been operating under an extension of the farm bill since 2023. We are more likely than not going to get another extension here at the end of September. So we need to get a farm bill done. Congress did address a number of things through the One Big Beautiful Bill process, the budget reconciliation process, but we do need a full, complete reauthorization of the farm bill. So what the timing of that looks like is unclear at the moment. I imagine there'll start to be some marker bills put out here in 2025, but the congressional calendar is really tight. I would say at the macro level, one of the things that Congress needs to do by the end of September 30 or by the end of September is to fund the government. So when Congress gets back here on September 2nd, their time and attention is going to be squarely
Yeah.
focused on funding the government. So we'll see what happens there just at the macro
Well, no
level.
doubt we know, and we talk about you and the team, working diligently and just as hard as you can, rolling up your sleeves in the background, working with CSC members and other members of Congress to advance these. So not always in the limelight, but that work is being done day and night. So no doubt you'll be squarely invested in that. In the remaining seconds, minutes here, give you an opportunity to talk about anything else you think is needed to put out there, and then we can put a bow on it.
Yeah, nothing really significant from my end, Fred. I think, here we are, the middle of August, and getting really excited for hunting season, as I'm sure you are. I like summer for some of the fishing, but man, it is a pretty boring few months not getting into the woods. So really excited. Our hunting season obviously start out with some doves, and then transition to whitetail pretty quickly. So
Yeah,
getting
that's
excited for
fantastic. And
that.
this is, the work we do and some of our, other partners. It all culminates really in the next, 3 to 5 months, depending on where you live. And heck, through the socials, already seeing people find measures of success in those early velvet seasons for some of the ungulates out there. And Uh, bird season's coming in, so it's certainly an exciting time, and I attribute a lot of this to the work, the access out there to the work we've been doing for many years, and we thank you for your leadership and your update for this Q3 update. Thank you, Taylor.
You bet, Fred. Always good to be on the podcast. Thank you.
Okay, we'll talk to you next time. All right, I'd like to welcome in now Mr. Chris Horton, as you all have come to know and love, with this Q3 update for fisheries. What's going uh, on the Hill, Chris? And I know we've had some movement on some highlighted legislation. What's going on?
Yeah, Fred, in Q3 and just prior to the August recess, we did see some fisheries priority movement. First, the Sport Fish and Boating Trust Fund reauthorization did pass out of committee in the House. And as we've discussed before, and we've had special guests on to talk about this being the 75th anniversary of the Sport Fish Restoration and Boating Trust Fund, which is basically the user pays public benefits aspect on the fishing side, wherever anglers and whenever you buy fishing tackle, there's an excise tax that ends up going back to fisheries conservation, and most of that back to the state natural resource agencies to manage our fish. So that's something that it's important that we get reauthorized every 5 years. It's not actually due to expire, I don't think, until next year. But it often, because of the marine fuel taxes associated with the highway and transportation bills. So that's moving. So we want to make sure that we're in position uh, to get that uh, important program reauthorized when the highway bill passes at the same time. So we're ahead of schedule on that. It's already passed, like I said, out of committee in the House. We've got some Senate sponsors lined up that we hope to introduce that bill shortly after they come back from August recess. Another big update is the Shark Act, which we've reported on in the past. I believe it passed the House back in the first quarter, not long after. It was one of the first bills introduced in the House and quickly passed committee and passed the House chamber. So been a little slower in the Senate. The Senate's a little more measured, but fortunately we've gotten it introduced there. It's passed out of the Senate Commerce Committee, so it's like one final step to getting this one over the finish line. And I know certainly anglers in the southeast where I fish mostly, this is something that we desperately need. Is just, and it doesn't do anything other than bring experts to the table to talk about this shark depredation program and or problem that we have, and what can we do to address that? What are some of our research needs? Is there equipment that's experimental equipment right now that could deter sharks? There's just a number of things that we can look at here to try to address this problem. Um, so yeah, we've had some movement here in the late summer on some important things from the fishery side, and obviously when they come back in September, we'll be hitting it hard and heavy, get the Shark Act done, sport fish restoration through the Senate. The rigs to reef bill that we've talked about many times is very, very close to being ready to be introduced as well. And our goal there, and one of the reasons it's taken us a while, is because we learned in the last Congress that there's some nuances to the rigs to reef legislation. We really got to work through with the industry, with the states, to make sure that we make the program truly more efficient for everyone. So we're working really hard to make sure we have all those tweaks in that language perfect, so that whenever we do get it introduced, we can move it quickly through both chambers.
A lot of good callback here to some past episodes that we've sat in on, specifically, hitting right off there with Kevin Bruce. You and I sat down with him back. We dropped that on August 7th. So, I know on the weekly program, we've been telling people to go back and at least sit, and check that documentary out. So, have 30 minutes. You can sit there and doom scroll and kill an hour and not even know it. So, if you put 30 minutes of your doom scrolling aside and go check this beautiful video out, learn more about it. And that's definitely a good one. And then, going back to our last featured episode that dropped before this one, where we sat down, Mr. Decker and Mr. Blankenship, learning more about the Sport Fish Restoration Act and the reauthorization of it and why it's important. Very informative episode. I'd also invite people to go back and check that one out as well.
Yeah, thanks for the plugs there. Certainly the Steel to Sanctuary, the Riggs Reef story is, as you said, it's just worth visually. It's just worth taking 35 minutes to watch the whole documentary. You'll learn a lot about this very important important programming specifically in the Gulf, but it also has implications for any type of steel structure, whether it be wind or anything we put in the water in the future. That this creates. It's amazing how steel in the water just transforms marine environments for the better. And this is a really good explanation of that. And you can actually see it. Don't take our word for it, but see it visually.
Yeah, I think I was pretty obsessed about that point. I mean, for me, someone the non-angler, I've never even fished the Gulf in my life, but to be able to see that, it just really drives the point home. You can sit and talk about it and say, this fish, that fish, this biomass, and all of it, and it can go over people's heads. But to see it and be like, okay, I got a full appreciation of it. I just think it's so powerful for so many people, and I think all different interests in the conservation and even the real green space. They were highlighted. A couple of them gals were highlighted on that video that were like, I don't want to call them crunchy, but they weren't kind of the sporting community, and they also see the value in this. Like, there's a lot of different motivations that can come together on this, and for good reason. So, and then Shark Tank taking that one more step. I was going to tell you, I I don't know if I'm just like so hypersensitive to it because you and I talk about it so often over the last year and a half, but I noticed this summer locally, social media wise, there are a lot of striped bass fishermen just losing their fish to sharks up here in the New England waters north of Cape Cod, which is pretty wild. I mean, I suppose it's been there, but I've never seen it so pronounced as I'm seeing it this summer.
No, I mean, yeah, it's always shark depredation's always been an issue and has become increasingly more of an issue over the last 5 or 6 years, maybe even to a decade, and mainly because we've done such a good job of restoring shark populations, and part of the problem is it's hard to assess a highly migratory species like shark that are moving around all the time, so doing stock assessments is expensive, it takes time. So there's many shark species out there that we haven't done an assessment on in years, and so the population is there's no question what we're seeing out there, anecdotal evidence on the water is, man, these shark populations are healthy now, very healthy. So now we're interacting with them a lot and a lot more in a negative way. I mean, we certainly support shark conservation and sharks are an important part of the ecosystem, but now we've got a conflict that seems to be out of proportion. So how do we address that? Is it deterrence? What do we need to what do we need to do to change this negative interaction with sharks? And that's the whole purpose of the Shark
Yeah,
Tank. So I think you're seeing reality expressed through social media that there are more frequent encounters out there, more frustration growing in the angling community. So it's time to do something about it.
for sure, no doubt. Well, I think we can probably leave it there for Q3, and like you said, we're looking forward to that last one there, Shark Tank, getting over the finish line towards the end of this year, hopefully, and no doubt you'll have further reporting if anything else rises to the top for this.
Yeah, yeah, I look forward to coming back on for Q4 because, like I said, certainly on the fish side, we've seen a lot of our priorities moving fairly early in this Congress. So, pretty optimistic that we're going to have a good Congress for fish policy.
That's great, Chris Horton. There he is, everybody. Thanks for coming on and giving us the update. Appreciate you. All right, our quarter 3 federal policy update continues. We welcome in Senior Director of Forestry, John Colclasure. John, welcome. Good to have you again. Catch us up on all things happening in forestry and land management.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. Appreciate you having me. It has been a busy year and busy quarter on federal forest policy and state forest policy. And at the federal level, a lot happening with Congress and with the administration, and with the forest NGO and related communities.
What specifically, on the Hill? I know it's a kind of a downtime of the year, acknowledging there's a lot going on. What can we look for federally? Um, Big beautiful bill passed a little while ago. There were provisions in there that affect our community. Anything there we can highlight for forestry?
Sure. Yeah. The One Big Beautiful Bill did include provisions to increase timber sales on U.S. Forest Service and BLM lands, as well as a mandated 20-year contracts for timber sales on U.S. Forest Service and BLM lands. So that is implemented or following through with or consistent with executive orders and secretary memos issued this year. And then as far as Congress, there are two big priorities. The public lands priority is Fix Our Forest Act, and the private lands forestry priority, among others, and particularly in the farm bill related stuff, is forest conservation easement program. Has not been a lot of action on either of those fronts since we spoke last, so I won't rehash all that. But there is a lot of momentum still behind Fix Our Forest Act from a wide range of forestry, conservation, insurance, municipalities. There's a wide range of people that are really interested in getting that bill passed to increase the ability for land managers to increase their forest resilience to withstand severe wildfires, reduce wildfire threat. So we're optimistic that there will be a markup on the Senate version this fall, or fingers crossed, hopeful, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of heavy amendment process, and we'll see where that goes. But still a lot of work being done behind the scenes to build momentum and support for that bill and very specific provisions within it, because it is a large bill that covers things that we care about, as well as things that are really not. I don't have much. We don't have much background experience working on it at CSF that are under that banner of Fix Our Forest Act. But overall, great bill. We're strongly supporting of both versions. There are some differences between the two, and so we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out if it's able to move this year. Related to that, the committees have been working on other standalone, smaller forestry bills. Some of those are in FOFA, like the White Oak Resilience Act, or uh, the Proven Forest Management Act, which would increase category exclusions up to 10,000 acres, which is similar to some increased CEs in FOFA. Those both passed out of committee, as well as the Post Disaster Reforestation and Restoration Act. Definitely a lot of movement on the forestry front on the Hill, and we'll see what happens in for the bills that do pass the House. Well, what the Senate will do with them.
Do you see action when they come back into session here in a little bit being taken on those? Do you think there's any movement by the end of the year? Or are we looking at something different?
Yeah, I really think there will be. I think there'll be something. I mean, every day that passes, there are more wildfires that burn, unfortunately, and it's fire season, and that always brings more attention to these issues. So I think after recess, I think there's going to be an increased emphasis on focusing on these forest management bills that deal with forest health on federal lands, particularly as they impact communities in a wildland urban interface.
Well, no doubt. I mean, from a personal experience, earlier this summer, my family and I were out in southern Utah and saw these fires firsthand. And then, unfortunately, a week later, we were at the north rim of the Grand Canyon.
Oh yeah.
That whole place is just wiped out. It's devastating. So one of the most beautiful visitor centers I've ever seen, and just well known in that area. People who have been know what I'm talking about. Gone. Just
Yeah, it's a
totally
huge
wiped out.
tragedy, and it kind of underscores the need for management and brings attention to that issue. And I'm not familiar with what happened or what mistakes may be made that led to that, but overall, pretty bad situation.
It's pretty upsetting. You mentioned state at the top there of you're coming into the show. You want to shed some light on some state stuff?
I'll kind of pivot. I mean, the states, most legislatures kind of wrap up, late spring. Obviously, summer year round, but a lot of them are uh, short or not full time, supposedly supposed to be part time jobs for state legislators. And as I think we talked about before, this year we saw there was a good prescribed fire bill in Montana that we supported and worked with some partners on, and then we saw a lot of what we would view as bad legislation promoting late successional old growth hands off management in the Northeast states. So I worked with you and some of your colleagues to push back on some of those bills and highlight the need for management flexibility, considering wildlife habitat needs and other forest health needs, where roping off an area for no management ever is maybe pretty short sighted. And there are a lot of examples of that with wilderness or other designations where they can't do certain species restoration, that you may need to open the canopy that to support a species and now they can't do that because the land has been designated as a no-touch area. So kind of a short-sighted, you know, good intent from probably the bill drafter's perspective, but maybe short-sighted in the long term.
I was just curious, and I didn't prep you for this, so if you don't know, my apologies. Is there any examples of that? Because I think we saw 2 examples of the no-go zone type management policy here in the Northeast that, fortunately didn't continue on as written, but I don't think I've ever heard personally of anything like that, and I'm curious if one exists, like, has it borne anything out other than just letting stuff grow and nothing being managed?
Yeah, so I mean, I can think of a few specific examples. Like in the Southern Appalachians, there are some wilderness areas that uh, that are in the Southern Appalachians. There's a big effort to restore red spruce, which really only grows at high elevations in Southern Appalachians. It's more prevalent in the Northeast states. So up in the mountains with the higher elevations, going to be colder. So it's a similar forest cover type to the Northeast or upper Midwest with the species composition. And red spruce has declined. So there's been a renewed interest in doing red spruce restoration. But in wilderness or other areas, they're similar. They can't go in there and do that management because you have to cut some trees to give sunlight to plant those trees to be successful. Same thing with American chestnut restoration. In any area that's off limits to management, chestnut needs sunlight to grow, so you can't do American chestnut restoration. There are also areas like in some wilderness areas where there have been hazard trees or huge hemlocks have fallen down and block trails or road access, and they actually use dynamite to blow up the trees to clear them because that was more efficient than using a crosscut saw because, you can't use chainsaw, which is mechanized equipment in a wilderness area.
Oh, man.
You've also got stream acidification, so areas are not managed and you have an overgrowth of rhododendron or mountain laurel or other ericaceous species. The soils and then the streams acidify, making them less suitable to, trout and, other aquatic organisms. And so like in West Virginia, they'll go in and lime some of those streams to increase the pH. But if that's wilderness or other areas with a lot of regs on it, that's hard to do that. So again, it's somebody wanted to quote protect an area, and then you fast forward a few decades, and now you have climate stressors and other human impacts and invasive species and insects and disease and other things that are impacting the forest, and your hands are tied with what tools you can use. So, but that kind of goes into something else I wanted to highlight, which was that Secretary Rollins recently announced that the USDA will be rescinding the roadless rule. So that was a rule announced in 2001 in President Clinton's final days of office. Has since been through several rounds of litigation, and long story short is the roadless rule severely limits management, active timber management, and road building and related activities on about 59 million acres of Forest Service lands.
Mm.
So immediately, the NGOs came out hard against it. Kind of the sky is falling, that every acre is going to be open to logging, etc. And then there's a lot of other folks on the more practical side saying this is going to restore decision making to the local the forest planners and increase the ability to manage forest resources to reduce wildfire threat and improve wildlife habitat and address forest health needs. So that's I've not seen the rule published in the Federal Register yet, but we'll see how that shakes out as well. And I anticipate a lot of litigation on that as well.
Very good. Anything else for this quarterly update?
The ongoing wildfire consolidation and potential wildfire service is, still being still unclear what's going to happen with that. So that's time will tell. But the other big thing right now is Secretary Rollins also um, issued a memo regarding reorganization of the USDA. So the agency headquarters are going to be relocated from DC to 5 regional hubs throughout the country. And be maintaining support and admin service centers and that's that side of things. But for the Forest Service side, they are also phasing out the 9 regional offices. And that's what probably people are probably familiar with their district ranger offices, but then also the regional offices, which in the past reported up through them. So that'll be a significant change in how the public interact with the Forest Service. And we'll see how it shakes out as far as improved efficiencies and the delivery of what they're trying to do to increase timber output and active management and still provide services to the public for recreation and other services.
Very good. So nothing going on with the group right now, but do finish it off with your final thought here.
Yeah, so recently I attended the Ninth American Forest Congress. It was held in DC last month. That brought together forest industry, government, NGOs, landowners who work in or just care about forest policy as it affects private and public lands. Yeah, it was I think it's about 500 people attended. So really a lot of good interest, a lot of good people there. Chief Schultz spoke at the opening session, and then Congressman Westerman, Panetta, and Peters spoke that word as well about Fix Our Forest Act and working in a bipartisan fashion and building trust with colleagues across the aisle. And so it's really positive discussions and a lot of important people and interested people and things that we care about as sportsmen. USDA Deputy Undersecretary Kristen Sleeper was on a panel. So a lot of involvement from the administration and in Congress, the people that are making decisions on things that we're working on. And there are it was a conference in the sense that there were educational sessions on various issues. But the other thing was that throughout the Congress, the participants set up little workshops where they would draft and vote on resolutions for the larger group to approve or disapprove of, and to kind of send a collective message to policymakers and in DC at large. And I think there was overall, most of the resolutions were positive. There's strong consensus around the need for strong forest products markets to support sustainable forestry. Strong consensus about the important role that sustainably managing forest plays for maintaining forest health and clean water and wildlife habitat and supporting the economy, and just the importance of collaboration and working together across boundaries and jurisdictional lines to manage forest resources to address the range of threats that forests are currently under. And then, there are a few resolutions that were adopted that were driven by the ENGO community that I don't think really resonate well with the current policymakers, and were things that I don't think that were things that I don't agree with or that our organization would agree with. But overall is a good gathering of forest policy folks and good time to collaborate and network with people. And I think there were some very strong resolutions that came out of it. So pretty cool thing to be involved with and see what comes out of it.
Awesome. There he is, John Colclaser, Senior Director of CSF's Forestry Policy. We thank you. Keep up the great work, and we appreciate your update.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Appreciate you having me.
All right. All right. As always, my thanks to Taylor, John, and Chris for their updates. As acknowledged, kind of a slow time, but plenty to talk about still. And as we head and charge to the end of 2025, obviously there's some challenges, but there's some good opportunity as well, as highlighted by these gentlemen. So hopefully in Q4 update, we will have some good news. Um, Next year is going to be just as wild, I guess, as any election year. Folks are going to be moving and shaking, trying to get reelected or become elected. So anyway, it'll be busy, and the focus will be on those midterms. So ideally, this stuff gets done in advance. That'll do it. That's our show. We'll put a bow on it. As always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. We'll see you next time. So long. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.